Today we're taking a first look at the Priority 600X. A little while ago I reached out to Ryan Van Duzer of YouTube Bikepacking fame. He runs the coolest channel and he's such a positive guy. He's so upbeat. This is the bike that he designed. I reached out and said, Ryan, I want to ride your dream bike. And he said, awesome, let's make it happen. So he and Priority and me all got together and we got this bike in so that you guys could get a first look at it and get my take on this interesting and completely different bike. Just about every single thing on this bike is different than my personal bike. I know you guys already know about this, but let's take a look. This moment in this video helps me see how this bike was packaged because I'm gonna have to strip it all down and pack it back up like this and put it in the same box. So handlebars here, front wheel here with the rotor on this side. Pretty simple. This thing's almost all the way put together already. One thing I need to point out, Priority understands the modern consumer these days far better than almost any other mountain bike company I've seen. They have so many videos on how to put it together. They have a quick reference code you can scan on your phone to pull up videos on how to assemble it yourself. They have more information about their bikes on their website than just about anybody. And so they've traded marketing fluff and hype for actual information that helps the end user. I've had great correspondence with them and I really respect the company. Their communication is fantastic. And the way that they present information in a whole bunch of different videos is genius. I don't know why every single bike company isn't doing that. Bravo, Priority. In addition to their great install videos, they've got little notes on here. This says, keep fork in place, turn the stem 180 degrees. So if you're not familiar with building bikes, if this is your first time building a bike, it's a great way to get familiar with it, but they give you a lot of great tips to help you. I firmly believe that if you're going bikepacking and going far away from home and far away from bike shops, you need to be able to do things like mount your handlebars, install pedals, set the tires up tubeless, that sort of thing. So I don't think there's anything on here that's too big of an ask for anybody that's going to go bikepacking. That said, if you are new to assembling bikes, they got a lot of good tips to help make it easier for you. They also warn you those little discs that protect your rotor, it will pull off the cap to your hub, most likely. It did for mine. So if you're building yours, check that. Because when you put your front wheel in the fork, you're going to notice, hey, there's a lot of play in there. Is it supposed to be like that? No, the front cap probably came off on your front hub. All right, she's all built up. That was really easy to build. Threw on the pedals, threw on the seat post, straightened out the stem, and threw on the bars, zip tied the front brake on. There's nothing to do in the back, nothing to do with the drivetrain. We've got a lot of firsts going on here. This is the first bike I've had for review that has a kickstand. Makes a lot of sense for how this bike is intended to be used, and it bolts on in a good way. You can remove it as well. I will be removing it for trail use. I think it's just going to be rattling on the trails, but who knows? I'll give it a try. This is the first Pinion Gearbox bike I've had on the channel. I have ridden Pinions before, just not on the channel. They've always been on full suspension bikes, but this is my first time riding a Pinion on a hardtail. There are very few Pinion hardtails. Pretty cool. It's a 12-speed drivetrain, and all the gears are inside here. The chain doesn't move. There isn't even a chain on this. It's a belt drive. Gates claims that these last 3 times longer than a chain. In my experience, that hasn't proven true how I've ridden it, but I was riding the belt drive in a single-speed, high-torque application in the mountains, not how this is intended to be used. So I actually think this makes a ton of sense for how Ryan rides. In fact, this whole bike is very purpose-built. It has a lot of great things tailored to his riding style and his needs, bikepacking. Now, bikepacking means so many different things to different people. Some people bikepack single speed, some people bikepack for months at a time and cross continents. Some people try to set records crossing a well-known trail and they don't even bring their sleeping bag or their tent because those are too heavy and too bulky and they'll hurt their race time. Some people love gnarly technical terrain that you'd ride on a normal mountain bike. That's what I like to bikepack, like the Arizona Trail. Other people like stuff like the Tour Divide where it's a road that's 40 feet wide that a car could go on. And so the needs for your bikepacking experience might be different than someone else's. So I think we got to be a little careful when we just use bikepacking in general. To me, bikepacking means carrying your stuff on your bike to complete a goal. And usually that involves overnight stays. But some people like to bike pack and just pedal to hotels and go from hotel to hotel. And so we're not here to tell you which is true bike packing. They're all true bike packing. And you need to find a bike that suits your needs and how you intend to bike pack. Ryan is off and down in South America. He's doing Baja Divide. He's doing Tour Divide. He's going from Canada to Mexico across the US. And he has taken his 600X so many different places. And I have so much respect for him. He has more miles logged than I ever will. He has more time on a hardtail than I ever will. And his fitness is insane, and his joy of riding is contagious when you watch his stuff. If you're not already subscribed to Ryan, go check it out. What a great force for good in the cycling world. So this is built to his specs. Now, I was talking to Ryan, and he said, it's not the lightest bike you're ever going to review. And I said, I know it's not designed to be. The pinions are never light. This thing's designed to be a mule. Total weight came in at 34.46 pounds. I feel like this is more of a 1985 Toyota Hilux than a Subaru STI or a Ford Raptor. And he said, exactly. That's what we're going for, was old school reliability. So when you're in the middle of Timbuktu, you don't have to worry about something breaking. Most people have very strong feelings about gearboxes. I love the idea. There's some things I love. There are things I don't love that I'll talk about in the review. But I think it makes a ton of sense for how Ryan is using this thing. The gearbox means all the gears are inside of here. All you do to maintain this is change the oil out every now and then, and that's the only maintenance you do. It's a grip shift. I have no problem with grip shift. A lot of people love to whine about this with the pinions and say, oh, if it had trigger shifters, I would have bought one already. If this is the only thing holding you back from a pinion, you don't want a pinion bad enough, I don't think. What's cool about this is you can shift into a gear without pedaling. And so you can be stopped at a stoplight, shift the gear, and then just start out in that gear. It's kind of like standard transmission in a car. You could start in fifth gear if you wanted. That'd be a dumb idea. Or you can just go straight to first and start there. So you can shift while you're pedaling backwards. It doesn't do anything with that. A lot of people say you can't shift under load. You absolutely can shift under load. It gets a little bound if you shift like an idiot, I'm going to say. Forgive me for offending some people. But if you're just stomping on it and in a place you shouldn't shift anyway with a normal derailleur, you'll feel it in the shifter that the teeth are a little bit bound with all the torque on them. You just let up a little bit. You're still pedaling and it still shifts just fine. But just don't be like putting down max watts and expect to dump 5 gears. The reason this is called the 600X is because this has a 600 times gear ratio. That's bigger than SRAM Eagle. And none of the gears overlap. So it just goes through these 12 gears and you've got great range, which is awesome for a bike packer where there may be a day where you do, I don't know, there may be 3 days where you're on pavement and you're just putting down the miles and you need something that goes fast on pavement. And then there are days when it's going to be so steep you can barely pedal it up there and might even have to push it. Having that wide range is super important on a bike packing rig like this. So there's no front derailleur, there's no rear derailleur, there's just the gearbox inside here. If you're not an expert mechanic, if you don't know how to index a derailleur, if you don't want to deal with dirty chains and derailleurs hanging off your bike and you just want a sealed unit that's just doing its thing that you can step away from and just not worry about, a Pinion makes a ton of sense for that. I also think of the many times you're pushing your bike or pulling it through brush or putting it in a box or getting it on a train. It makes sense not to have a derailleur hanging off there if you can do it. And for the price they came in to have a Pinion gearbox, I'm really impressed with the price they've been able to do this at. Most Pinion bikes are extremely expensive. So this is going to be more than a budget like Salsa or a budget Surly, but that Pinion gearbox for the price is pretty outstanding. Also, the nice thing about the Pinion gearbox is all the weight is low at the lowest point in the bike and everything's protected inside here. Now you need a special frame designed for it to have this cradle to accept the Pinion gearbox, and so this whole bike was designed around that. And that coupled with the Gates carbon belt drive theoretically should provide you with years of very low to zero maintenance. I would definitely carry a spare belt with me if I were bike packing. Like I said, I've had one break on one of my other reviews. I reviewed the Spot Rocker and the belt broke on that. So I don't trust them entirely, but I would definitely carry a spare one that's this exact length. Really cool how they've got these stainless steel cogs. They're just beautiful. They're going to stay looking awesome forever. To run a belt, you need a split in the frame because you have to slide the belt in to this little slit here. So when you unbolt the dropout, the frames come apart just like that spot rocker that I had. So you can't just throw a belt drive on any bike you want. We've got bosses everywhere. We've got rack mounts. Like I said, we've got this kickstand. We've got sliding dropouts so that you can get that Gates belt drive the right tension. We've also got quick releases front and rear, so you don't need tools to remove the wheels. This is an aluminum frame. You'll notice there are a whole bunch of water bottle bosses. We got a 2-pack down here, a 3-pack in here, a 2-pack here, 3-pack, 3 separate ones under here. We've got rack mounts, so you could run racks on this. We've got the kickstand. There's just a lot of options to bolt stuff onto. And a lot of bike packers love these little grommets. Personally, I'm fine using straps and strapping my bags to the bike. Otherwise, I have to get custom bags that fit these holes. But if Priority came out with a set of bags that perfectly lined up for it, that might make a ton of sense. Now, I went with a medium, and I was an idiot. I went sizing based off reach and effective top tube, and there's 2 reasons not to do that. One, this has a 60 mil stem, and then the bars have forward sweep before back sweep. So the effective reach and effective top tube is going to be longer than it appears on the geo chart. I'm used to sizing, modern trail mountain bikes. And this size is more like city bikes or commuter bikes, or the way we used to size bikes where you stand over the top tube. Secondly, the reason I should have gone with the small, this seat tube is 480 mil long. That's very long. To put that in reference, my Maniac is, I think it's 80 mil shorter. That's the longest seat tube I've ever run. Now, there's a reason they do that. It's so you can fit a big bag in the triangle. And with short riders like me, you're always fighting, do I run a big triangle and fit lots of stuff and have poor standover? Or do I get good standover and fit less stuff in the triangle bag? I even watched Ryan's video today. I should have watched it sooner, where he's 5'11", with a much longer inseam than me, and he sized down to a medium. This is a medium. I should have sized down to a small, especially with the longer stem and the forward swept then back swept bars. I don't think I'm going to feel stretched out. I just can't run the dropper that they sent with it, which is a bummer because it was one of those PNW Coast droppers, which I love. It's one of those suspension droppers, which really takes the sting out on rides. This is also the first bike I've received that came with a Wren fork on it. Now, you've seen the Wren upside down fork before on this channel. I was running the higher travel version. This is the 110 mil travel version, and I'm excited to ride this out on the trail. I've had some problems with my Wren, and that's why the review hasn't dropped, and I'm trying to sort them out. And before I leave a bad review about it, I want to make sure I've done everything I can to get it to work. I've heard nothing but good things from Ryan and from other people who get these Wrens on their priorities, and so maybe I just got a bad batch, but we'll see. I don't want to talk too much about the fork, but it's exciting to see the Wren on a production bike. This comes with 2.4 tires on those 35i rims, which give it a nice big profile, and I think that's a good way to do it. The tires say tubeless complete. I assume that means tubeless ready, but the rims don't have rims tape. So you need to purchase rim tape and valves and sealant if you're going to convert yours to tubeless. I'm not going to do that for a review, so I'm going to leave the tubes in it for now. But if you were going to buy one of these, that is something I would definitely recommend. I will say these Goodyear Peak tires have a very thin sidewall. When I pulled the tire off to look at the rim strip to see if it was taped or not, it just felt very, very thin. So be careful with pinch flats or sidewalls on these. I think they're going to be great tires for their intended use. Just don't run the pressure too low and risk. I think they might be a little more prone to flats than some of the heavier mountain bike tires that we're used to. I think it's time to get this thing on the geo meter and see what the geo numbers look like. It's extremely different than any other bike I've had on the channel. I don't know if it comes across on camera, but this bike is big. Tall stack, long, stretched out frame, super long seat tube. And this is a size medium, so probably size down. All right, let's see. Rear center measures 458. That's a long rear center. Should feel plenty stable. Nobody's buying this to do manuals and bunny hops, which makes perfect sense. Reach on this medium is 415. Wow, that's a short reach. If you remember, when I go bike packing, I don't like a long reach. I don't like being super stretched out because I'm spending most of the day seated in the saddle. I'm not pumping terrain and hitting drops and stuff. So it makes sense to have a shorter reach, especially with the 60 mil stem and especially with those bars that pull slightly forward. Seat tube length, 475. They could easily cut an inch off of that, which I would do. I would recommend they do that. Front center is 698 millimeters. Wheelbase is 1160. Boy, this is a trip. Watch. The belt doesn't, it can move backwards. Oh, that's crazy. This sprocket moves at a different rate than the crank because of the gear that it's in. Watch this. We just shifted to the 12. That's more close to a 1-to-1. Oh, this is so fun. That is so weird on my brain to watch these spin and not the chain ring. So cool. I love the technology going on here. So in here, there's its own ratchet. So this is ratcheting, and then as you step forward, it engages that ratchet, which then engages the ratchet of this. We have a 64 mil bottom bracket drop. Stack is 660 mil. Nice tall stack. And they left a nice long steer tube so I can adjust the stack. That's going to be really comfortable for long days in the saddle too, to have a nice upright feel. Part of that's the steeper head angle, but still for a 110 mil fork to have stacked that high is impressive. Head angle is 68.8 degrees. Makes sense for how this bike is intended to be used. Wow, seat tube angle 74.6. That's pretty modern. Not bad. That's effective and actual. And effective top tube is 595 millimeters. So I haven't had a bike in with geometry quite like that. Pretty steep head angle, decent seat angle, long rear end. In fact, the chainstay is far longer than the reach, which gives a bike a very planted feel. When you just stand on the pedals, it weights the front wheel a lot more because the back wheel is so far back there and your weight's a little bit more distributed, a little more evenly on it. That makes a lot of sense for how this bike's intended to be ridden. This bike comes with Hayes Dominion 4-piston brakes. Those are excellent brakes. Really impressed with that. So yeah, we got great brakes. We got the great Pinion drivetrain. We've got the Ren 110 mil fork. You can order it with a dropper if you wish. It's internal routing, which I actually like for the Pinion gearbox. It has 2 cables that come in. One, it's interesting, when you turn the grip shift, one set of cables pulls, and when you turn it the other way, the other cable pulls. It doesn't have a return spring like a derailleur, so that's why grip shift works so well. And if you try to go trigger shift, it's funky. There have been a couple companies that have made kind of retrofit ones. I haven't tried them. I'm skeptical at best, but I'm sure someone will figure out eventually. But I have no problem with grip shift. I think it's actually easier. You can dump all the gears at once. You're not going to be sending it off huge jumps anyway with this, so I don't think having the grip shift is a problem in the slightest. They've also got these ergonomic grips that a lot of bike packers like. You're spending a lot of time on your hands in the saddle, and having a comfortable grip position is crucial. All right, let's see what size tires this thing will fit. All right, here's a 29 by 3.0 on a 45i rim. This is not rated to fit this, so I don't expect it to in the slightest. And like I always say with 29 by 3.0, it's the height that's the problem usually as much as the width. These are tall tires. Hey, it's actually fitting, just rubbing the belt because I have the belt right here. Let me move the belt. Wow. It's hard to see. There's about 5 mil clearance in there. Ooh, less over here. You got 5 mil over there, 5 mil over there. So even for Arizona, that's tight. But I do think a 2.8 would fit. A 2.6 is definitely going to fit. That surprised me. Those chainstay yokes are nice and wide in there. I think just having that versatility is really cool. So if you ever have to change your tire, it's a little bit different than a chain. There we go. But these sliding dropouts make it nice. There's a center track on these pulleys that lines up on the teeth in here, which is really nice. Now we want this under tension, so I have to pull this a little bit. Gates has an app where you can twang it like a guitar string and tune it based on the sound. And that's pretty cool to be able to tune it that way. I'm really impressed this has Hayes Dominion brakes. Personally, I'd rather have a bolt than quick release, but everybody's needs are different. Interesting, this has both, it looks like a bolt to push and a bolt to limit. I've got screws on both sides. I've never seen that before. I've only seen tensioners on the inside. So I want to give a huge shout out to Ryan for being an amazing human and for Priority for hooking us up to get this bike in so that we can review it and see what it's like and take it out on the trail and give it a proper review. If you guys are interested in seeing that, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it when I drop that review. And if you want to pick my brain for some one-on-one bike consultations so I can help you pick the best bike for your budget and riding style and terrain, become a patron today. I do that over on Patreon. I'd be happy to help you over there. So it's very different than any bike I've ridden on the channel. The geometry is totally different. The purpose is totally different. The weight's different. The gearbox is different. The belt drive is pretty different. And I'm so excited to get this thing out on the trail and see what it rides like in a modern context. Now, I'm not going to take this down my double black diamonds here in Sedona because that's not what it's meant for. I'm going to take it out on the kind of roads that Ryan rides to try and see what it's like and what he designed it for. There's a party in the mountains, and you're invited.